An explosion in the Lebanese capital of Beirut has killed hundreds of people, and the death toll is expected to rise as rescue workers dig through the rubble and destruction in search of more victims. Now, at least 135 people were killed and more than 5,000 were wounded. An official with the Lebanese Red Cross, George Katane, warned that the death toll could further rise, which makes a lot of sense as, again, they're still searching through the rubble to see if there are any other victims. Around 5,000 people were injured in Tuesday's explosion, and up to 250,000 individuals were left without homes fit to live in. So there's been a lot of devastation in Lebanon, and please keep in mind that this is a country that was already grappling with a huge economic downturn that was made worse by Donald Trump's sanctions on Syria. Syria was an important trade partner for Lebanon, and they were still doing some trade, some trade with Syria, despite these sanctions. But now with the destruction of that port, a lot of economic devastation is going to follow this. So the Trump administration has taken what I would argue is not a surprising approach in messaging about this explosion. What caused it? Well, Prime Minister Hassan Diab, he says that the explosions were actually caused by negligence. Careless welding ignited 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, a highly combustible material used as fertilizer and for bomb making. By comparison, just to show you, how serious this is and how giant this is, Timothy McVeigh used about 2.4 tons of the same chemical in the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. So it kind of gives you an idea of the scale of destruction that was caused as a result of this accident. But even though so far it's being reported as an accident, including by authorities in Lebanon, Donald Trump wanted to change the narrative. And so let's take a listen to what he had to say to reporters about this yesterday.
Hundreds more were very badly wounded in a large explosion in Beirut. Our prayers go out to all the victims and their families. The United States stands ready to assist Lebanon. We have a very good relationship with the people of Lebanon, and we will be there to help. It looks like a terrible attack.
He gave no evidence that this was a so-called terrible attack. There's been no indication that Lebanon was attacked. And the Pentagon actually released a statement indicating that they disagree with Donald Trump and they are not following this narrative, luckily. One official said that if there were any indications anyone in the region pulled something off of this scale, it would trigger automatic increases in force protection for US troops and assets in the region. If for no reason, then worry about retribution attacks. The official noted that none of that has happened so far. Also, following Trump's comments Tuesday, Lebanese officials raised concerns that US diplomats, or with US diplomats, I should say, about the use of the word attack at this point. But I wanna be clear, the mainstream media narrative is that Donald Trump said that simply because he's an incompetent buffoon. Don't get me wrong, he's an incompetent buffoon. However, there are political motivations that you should be aware of. And I wanna just turn to a quick snippet of an interview on Democracy Now! That gives you an idea of exactly why Donald Trump would try to push this type of narrative.
Then you have Pompeo, the Secretary of State, calling not the current prime minister, but the previous prime minister.
Well, this is the ideological amateurism and ignorance of the American government being exhibited at the level of the highest political class in the White House and in the State Department. These people don't care about Lebanon or the Arab world. They don't know anything about it. They're basically following a rule book that is dictated by internal American politics, linked heavily to fundamentalist Christian extremist skinheads who are very, very linked close to Israeli settler colonialists. And this is something that's been consistent for the last 3.5 years, and it will continue to be there. They're campaigning against Iran and Hezbollah, and anything that happens in Lebanon that's bad, they're gonna link it to Hezbollah and Iran. So I would completely discard anything that Trump or Pompeo says about this. And the fact that they called Hariri not the not the prime minister or the president is fascinating, because they don't care about humanitarian suffering. 300,000 people have lost their homes. They don't care about that. All they want to do is talk to somebody in there who can link them, say, to the Saudis or the Emiratis, or somebody who can, help them push against Hezbollah and Iran.
And in fact, some of the latest sanctions on Syria were intentionally meant to be indirect sanctions on Lebanon. So, this is the geopolitical angle that I think people need to be aware of, and not just fall for this mainstream media angle of, oh, there are no political motivations, Trump's just an idiot, and that's why he said what he said. I think that he is an idiot, there's no question, but there are political motivations behind referring to this as an attack.
Yeah, and it could also be mixed. It could be that, those political motivations might be the main thing driving the response of his administration, but not necessarily him individually. I wouldn't put it past him that he was handed a paper that he didn't read, and he heard there's a big explosion, and he thought, oh, it's an explosion in the Middle East. I know what that is. I don't know. I have no doubt that whatever comes out of this situation vis-a-vis Lebanon with the United States government is going to be entirely driven by those longstanding political motivations. But I do know that he doesn't care at all about what has happened or what will happen to those people as they, engage in the almost impossible task of recovering from something as devastating as this, starting off at a point where they were about as ill-equipped to deal with this sort of tragedy as any place in the world.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.